I want to go to the US now. In the latest MAGA minute from the White House, they boast about Donald Trump's boost for the US steel industry. Have a look.
And the president traveled to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to announce a planned partnership between U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel that will create at least 70,000 jobs and equates to a $14 billion investment in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, well, that's fine for the US and Pennsylvania in particular, but Trump's steel and aluminium tariffs are a cruel blow to our industries here in Australia, a point I put to our US analyst, Kristen Tate.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable why Australians would be upset with Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum. Australia has been a very fair trading partner with the United States. I can't say the tariffs are right, Chris, but I can just give some perspective on why this is all happening. Countries around the world have taken advantage of the United States, and people love to say, oh, you know, America is the richest country in the world. But we're $37 trillion in debt, and that number continues to rise every year. Our trade deficits are completely unsustainable. And you know, if these numbers continue, America will collapse hard. Many countries around the world, including many of our allies, they have put huge tariffs on all of our exports, our cars, our agricultural goods, everything that is manufactured. And putting tariffs on other countries, especially reciprocal tariffs, they simply level the playing field.
There are some economic problems with all of this, though. Here's our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
This is an act of economic self-harm by the United States. It will increase the costs for consumers in the United States. Because it is supplied across the board, what it will do is not create any comparative advantage or disadvantage for Australia compared with other countries that export into the United States.
Well, it's not too often that I agree with our Prime Minister, especially when it comes to economics. But let's forget about the effect on Australia. It's this point that tariffs increase the cost of goods in America. Is that starting to bite in the American domestic debate, that while these tariffs are, great, as you say, to send a message to the world that you want free and fair trade with America, but the bottom line is American consumers are going to pay more?
In the short term, probably yes, prices could go up in the short term, but this is about a long-term strategy. I've been all around this country, Chris. I went from coast to coast in a car a few years ago, and you go to any country, or any city rather, in the middle of this country, it is so sad what has happened. Entire U.S. cities gutted because of this. But will there be some higher prices in the short term? Sadly, probably yes. This is a long-term play.
Let's go to global strategic issues, and the biggest threat to global peace, certainly in the region that Australia resides in, but probably globally, is the threat of war between the US and China over Taiwan. The Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has gone a lot further forward on this debate than many have in the years previously. Usually countries, including Australia and America, talk about strategic ambiguity, but Pete Hegseth seems to be saying that if China invades or tries to take control of Taiwan, there will be war. Have a look.
President Trump has also said that Communist China will not invade Taiwan on his watch. So our goal is to prevent war, to make the cost too high, and peace the only option. And we will do this with a strong shield of deterrence. But if deterrence fails, and if called upon by my commander-in-chief, we are prepared to do what the Department of Defense does best, to fight and win decisively.
Strong words, Kristen.
Yeah, I mean, Trump was clearly trying to send a message through Pete Hegseth that Taiwan is off limits to China. Taiwan is strategically critical for the Western Hemisphere. It's the most, important supplier of high-tech semiconductors in the world. And yes, there are efforts underway to diversify the sourcing of these semiconductors, but that is a decade or so out at best. So this is very critical. Trump is sending a strong message, and I think the Chinese are going to take that message very seriously. The Chinese think Trump is a little crazy, a little unpredictable, and hey, they might be right. So do I think that they're going to make a move like trying to take Taiwan on Trump's watch? A smart betting man would probably say no. Trump's got 3.5 years left. China will be better sitting and waiting during Trump's term for another weak man like Biden to come into office before doing something like this. Yeah, Trump is sending a strong message.
I think you're absolutely right, Kristen. It's a case of peace through strength, and I think China and Beijing would be very reluctant to act while the unpredictable Donald Trump is in the White House. Let's cross our fingers and hope so. But let's look back now on the previous White House and the ongoing debate about Joe Biden and the cover-up, if you like, to try and make sure, convince everybody that he was okay, even that he could run another term. The book we've referred to previously is Original Sin. And have a look at what they say here about the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. They say she was also, without question, one of the chief supporters of the president's decision to run for re-election and one of the chief deniers of his deterioration. Now, Kristen, they make her sound like some sort of Lady Macbeth character.
Well, there's a real chance here that Jill Biden was perhaps one of the people calling the shots during Joe Biden's presidency. This is what makes this scandal so intriguing, is that we really don't know who was at the helm during the 4 years of the Joe Biden presidency. Clearly, Joe Biden was not running the country. I wrote about this in my Sky News Australia column last week, and the media is just completely disinterested in what should be a massive scandal here, Chris. I mean, there's a chance that the sitting president of the United States, the former sitting president of the United States, while he was in office, had cancer, and we were lied to about it by the president himself, by his wife, by his doctors, by his handlers. People need to be held accountable if it's found that they were lying. And do I think Jill Biden was lying? If there was some kind of cover-up underway, of course she was.
Intrigue as always, Kristen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.